Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome to How to Get Hired. If you're just joining me, I'm Bill, the company's expert, and this is the live Q&A session. So if you have a question about job interviews or resumes or careers or networking or anything like that, ask it in the chat box, and I will do my best to help you out. I just finished a live stream on leadership. Which is a bit of an experimental kind of thing, but we're here. This is my standard weekly, regular Q&A live stream that I do that is not experimental. So I'm here to help you out. And we have, I'm not sure how to say your name, Mr. U. Sethi says, hello, can't wait. Hello, Mr. or Ms. Sethi. It's great to hear. I'm on fire today. It's great to have you here. Classic Italian Culture is here. Classic Italian Culture says, hey, Bill, sorry for before. Next week, I have an interview with a large biopharma company where they rejected me for a position because they found a better candidate, but the hiring managers organized a second interview for the same position, but different team because they were impressed by me and didn't want to lose me in the company. I feel lucky for a second opportunity and good comments. Well, that's good. From two hiring managers, any suggestions on how to prepare for it? I ended the call with the HR with your favorite words. Thank you for this opportunity. And the HR lady giggled. Okay, so like a sort of a girlish kind of giggle. Well, that's good, I guess. I will rock. Well, good. Good. Okay, so any suggestions here on how to prepare for it? So this is your second interview, okay? And they didn't want to lose you. Now, are you already working for this company, huge biopharma company? Okay, so you aren't working for them. You went for a job interview for one job, but then they said they don't want to lose you in the company. Okay, it's a second interview. So I'm trying to 100% understand the details there. So they hired somebody else, but they don't want to lose you, so they brought you in to do a second interview for the same position. But there's two hiring managers, and now when you say the HR, I assume you mean the recruiter. That's not a hiring manager you're talking about. Well, listen, there's nothing non-standard here. Do your preparation the way you would for a first interview and a second interview. You don't know what these people are going to do. They could do it like a second interview where they go deeper, or they could do it like a first interview because they have maybe different people present. You don't know what you're going to get. So better safe than sorry. Prepare for both scenarios, okay? The way you prepare for a first interview, like everybody knows, is you basically, figure out the answers to a lot of common job interview questions and you practice saying them, right? Now, presumably you've done that already. You also prepare, for the behavioral interview questions where, what I recommend is you practice 10 stories, basically. They're going to say, tell me about a time you did this, tell me about a time you did that. Right? Tell me about a time that you had a conflict with this person. Tell me about a time where you showed creativity. Tell me about a time when something went wrong and you had to, scramble. You're going to prepare all of those, right? So you come forearmed, and then any question like that they ask you, you're going to pull out one of those 10 scenarios that you've vetted and rehearsed and practiced saying in a very compact way, right? Now, the classic twist for a second interview is that they're going to try, a lot of times they'll try and be more familiar with you. It's like, you're back. I know you. You're among friends. We can drop the formalism a little bit, and speak more off the cuff, go off script a bit more, right? That's a common tactic. It doesn't mean that they're going to necessarily do this, but that's a common thing that people that often do in a second interview. And because you feel like, you're more familiar with these people, you let your guard down. You start talking about things that you didn't rehearse. You start talking about scenarios and stuff from your past that you didn't vet, you didn't rehearse, you didn't practice. Okay? Because they want to go deeper, right? That's a liability for you. Don't do that, okay? Stick to your scripts. Stick to what you've prepared. Okay, as much as humanly possible. They're going to try and get you to go off script and get you to talk off the top of your head about something you didn't think you'd be talking about. Your job is to resist that, right? Okay? Because that's when it's very risky. Like once you start talking about something that you never rehearsed, that you never thought about, but you find yourself talking all about it, you're on shaky ground. Okay, so it could go either way, but you should be prepared for both of them. And remember the basics. The most important thing in there is to be likable. So even if they throw a curveball at you, they ask you a question that quite honestly stumps you, or you're very nervous or anything like that, you got to always give the impression of being a friendly, approachable, amiable person that they would want to work with, right? That's by far the most important. And beyond that, that's all you can do, okay? If you've done all that stuff, you're fine. That's all that anyone could reasonably expect of you. At the end of the day, they will have more candidates than they have positions open, and you could be really good. And a lot of times it comes down to a toss-up, Each of these people is awesome. We got 5 candidates. I think they're all great. I would hire any one of them. If I had 5 positions open, I'd hire all 5, right? But I have to only pick one. And it's painful because I'm saying no to 4 candidates who would be awesome, right? That's a lot of the times what's going on the other end. So just do your best. That's all you can do. And then beyond that, keep moving forward and generate more interviews, more job opportunities. Okay, always be looking forward. It comes down to random chance at the end of the day if you've done all your homework. Said don't worry, it's all good. Good, because I bastardize everybody's name. Always have. I suspect I always will, unfortunately. So it's great that you're so awesome about it. John says, hey, I wanted your take on this. How would a guy with ADHD, potential autism, migraine disorder be able to make it in the medical field in radiography? Well, I'm not, okay, just full disclosure, I'm not in the medical field, so they might have a certain culture there and certain things that they do, of which I'm not aware. But just generally speaking, the first thing I'd want to know is, do any of those qualify officially as a disability in the country that you're applying to? Okay, so if you're in the US and you're applying within the US, do any of those qualify as like an official recognized like medical disorder? Okay, for which you would be officially classified as like a disabled or anything like that. Because there's special things there. Okay, like depending on what you're doing, depending on what you're going for and what industry it's in, there's special things there. Now, let's say for the sake of argument that none of those qualify. Okay, like potential autism, ADHD, is it like medically diagnosed ADHD, or is it just like, I'm a bit hyperactive, kind of thing? I'm not sure. But let's say that none of those are medically diagnosed and recognized as like a disability that, they would categorize as a certain type of employee that needs to be represented and all that kind of stuff. Now, if that's the case, if none of these are recognized, I would not mention it, okay? Because, some people think like, okay, I'm going to say this, and then what it's going to do is people will kind of have some sympathy, perhaps some empathy, and they will, it'll be a feather in my cap, because when they see some of the challenges that I've been up against, it makes my accomplishments all the more important, right? And all the more valuable. The problem is that they won't see it that way, okay? They will see it as like, oh, that's a risk factor. That makes you a riskier candidate. Maybe you're going to call in sick because you have a migraine disorder. Does that mean you're going to be, calling in sick every 3 days? potential autism. Does that mean like, you're going to be very, very difficult to work with, or, everything has to be just exactly right, or you're going to, throw a tantrum, or, like, we don't know. We're not qualified to say any of this stuff. So the fact that you've told us this and we don't know, that makes it risky. Okay. So unless any of those are medically diagnosed, I would keep them to yourself. I would just go in there, try and be friendly, and take the attitude that, like, as much as you physically can without like lying through your teeth, nothing is going to be a problem. You're not a candidate that has a lot of issues. You're someone that, is easy to deal with. You're going to be able to do the job. No problem. No issues. You know what I mean? Whatever stuff, you wouldn't say this, but whatever stuff might be going on with you, you're going to deal with it, and they need never know about it because the work just gets done. You're easy to deal with and everyone's happy, right? That's kind of the approach I would take if it were me. Hopefully that makes sense. David says, as someone seeking a new role at the moment, I feel that AI is preventing my applications getting through to the hiring managers. Well, okay. I'm inferring from your statement that you are applying to jobs through standard channels, and that you are applying to jobs where they get lots and lots and lots of applicants. Okay. You could well be right. I'm not sure. But what I would say is that a proper job search campaign to give you the best chance has several things in it. You don't just do one thing. You don't just apply to jobs this way. You do several things. Okay. Presumably you would apply to jobs that don't involve the application going in directly to a recruiter through, AI, through applicant tracking software. Okay. Check into the world of networking, like start reaching out to hiring managers yourself. Okay. That is a much higher chance of success, and the quality of the jobs at the end of the day are better when you try and get employed via that vector, or whatever you want to call it, that method. Okay. So don't just do this. Okay. Trying to outmaneuver applicant tracking software, personally, I think it's not worth doing, because it's one of the worst ways to get a job of all the different options you have. So I wouldn't beat your head against the wall trying to outsmart AI software and tailor your resume just right to get past the filter. I wouldn't worry about that. That's not a great use of your time and your effort, in my opinion. There are far more promising ways to get jobs and that result in much better jobs. And if you don't know what those are, just start watching some stuff off my channel, especially the networking type stuff. Cajun Cracker Ranch is in the US. Okay, good. Well, that makes it simpler. I'm more familiar with the US than other places. Kavya, how can I become a pilot? Great question. I'm not a pilot. I briefly was the general manager of a small airline, but that was a long time ago. I don't really remember much of the idiosyncrasies of it, but here's what I would do. Okay. You have access to LinkedIn, right? LinkedIn. Hopefully you're on LinkedIn. If you're not on LinkedIn, get on LinkedIn. It's like the Facebook of business. Okay. And learn LinkedIn, start connecting to pilots, start connecting to people that would deal with pilots, instructors in flight schools, people that work in airlines, people that work in, civilian aviation, like whatever it is that you're interested in doing. Okay. Connect with those people. Then learn how to do an informational interview. Okay. An informational interview is where you get together with somebody, and the whole point is you're not pursuing a job. Okay. You're just having a conversation with them to learn. Okay. Now, speaking to people that have been pilots for many years would probably be useful to you. You could ask them, like, how did you become a pilot? What would you recommend for someone who wanted to be a pilot now, today? What are some of the resources? Who can help me? Things like this. These would probably be things that would be good to know, right? So who would know this stuff? Well, presumably pilots, presumably people who teach pilots, people who employ pilots, things like this. So those are the people you're going to want to connect with. And if they live close to you, you can go and try to get an informational interview with them. Say like, hey, would it be possible to just, to grab a coffee and I could just get 30 minutes of your time? I would love to be able to get your expert opinion on a couple of questions about, aviation and, becoming a pilot. Would that be okay? And a lot of people won't respond, but some people will. And you get a bunch of informational interviews lined up, and you will learn exactly what you're wanting to know right from the source. Okay. So, I don't know how to become a pilot, but that's how you would find out. Okay. And just because somebody did it or a school says you should do this is not necessarily what people like who are pilots would recommend you do, right? There could be a difference there. So this is how you find that stuff out too. Okay, John says, yes, medically diagnosed, just zero energy, so it's difficult to interact, do tasks, and think. Okay, and AD, that is. Okay, so it's medically diagnosed, so it's officially. Well, okay, so that's good. Now the next question is that recognized by employers as, I'm assuming the answer is yes, but I don't know for a fact. Is it like a sort of box you tick? Now, the things that you just said in that comment to me, okay? If I was a hiring manager or a recruiter, that would trigger off a few questions. Because if you're saying like, it's difficult to interact, it's difficult to do tasks, and it's difficult to think, that's giving me like a lot of questions and possibly some red flags. So you would need to be able to explain it to people in such a way that it would work for you. Basically, what you're trying to do, John, is you're trying to sell yourself. You're trying to say, look, I'm a great employee. Now, I do have a medical disability, okay? And, it might require some basic accommodation, but it's not going to interfere with my job. I will be a good employee. You don't have to worry about me. As long as I have some very basic accommodation, I will be able to perform every bit as good as any other person, any other candidate, right? That's what you want to get them to believe, right? So everything you say has to go towards that goal, okay? So as an example, I'm not saying you would say this. I'm just saying, as an example, you wouldn't say like, well, I have an issue doing tasks. I have issues interacting. I have an issue thinking. You wouldn't say stuff like that. You would downplay all of that, play up the fact that like, I have got a disability, so we can check that box, but I'm every bit as good. If you give me the right environment, I can outperform. I can kick ass in this area here. I'm great at doing this particular type of tasks or activity. I'm great under these conditions. Maybe your disability gives you an advantage in some way. Maybe you don't want to interact with people. Maybe that allows you to focus more on technical tasks. I don't know. Whatever that is, that's the stuff you have to sort of prepare. It's almost like preparing a sales pitch, right? Because on the one hand, you want to go in there and say, this is everything wrong with me. But at the same time, you got to recognize that's not going to be helpful. You've got to spin it in a way that, they're actually going to hire you, right? Or else what's the point of doing this? So does that make sense? Like, think of how you would spin it. You've talked about your weaknesses to me. What are your strengths? That's what you've got to really, practice and get down and be able to communicate and have them go, oh, okay, yeah, I see. The ability to focus on this without outside distractions. That's one hell of an advantage. It allows the quality of your work to go up. Maybe, if you're borderline autism or whatever, great attention to detail. Nothing gets past you. It's very rare that you make a technical mistake. The standard of your work in terms of quality is much higher than the average person. Like think of stuff like that. If you could come up with like a whole barrage of stuff like that, that's going to really serve you well. Hello, Jonathan. Jonathan's here. Kavya says, how can I create a company? Oh, how much time you got? Well, I have a live stream that normally I do it every week. I have missed 2 weeks of it because I was doing the leadership thing. It's going to come back soon, maybe next week. I'm not sure, but it's called, what the hell is it called? It's the Entrepreneurship live stream. And where's the thumbnail for it? I'll show you what it looks like here, if I can make this work. So let's see here. I'm going to take that out. It's this one. It's called Side Hustle Ideas. Okay. And it talks about side hustles, but side hustles are like a way of putting your toe in the water, like just, in a very small scale of entrepreneurship, of how to like create a company and how to make money on your own. I'm a big advocate for that stuff. Working as an employee is not the only way to make money, right? And there are other things too, right? The great thing about starting your own business and having it be successful is that you don't have to go through an employer. If you want to make more money, you just work harder or work smarter and bam, more money, and you don't have to worry about being laid off or anything like this. And there's no sort of cap. So if you're really good at what you do, the sky's the limit in terms of earning potential, right? So I'm a big fan of that stuff. I think it's a great skill. Also, learning that stuff helps you be a better employee because you understand really how business works, and you're much more valuable to your employer because you're aware of like what's important in a business, and what are the priorities. Okay. But to technically answer your question, you don't need to do anything to create a company. You just need to make money. Now, in an official sense, usually depending on what country you are in the world, there's like a form you got to fill out and you register it with the equivalent of the government company's office, whatever that's called in your country that has different names all over the world. Okay, just one form. You basically say your name and you make sure the name is unique. They do a check. They say this name is available, right? They give you a number. That's your official corporation number or business number. It doesn't have to be a corporation. It could be a sole proprietorship or any other form of company. Right? They'll give you a unique number. And it's just one form. You say who owns it. If there's multiple owners, it's, 50% owned by me and 50% owned by my sister or something like that. And that's it. That's really all there is to it. It's not rocket science. But then after you fill out that form and you have your own company, absolutely nothing changes. So then, you have to actually go and do the work to start making money. And a lot of people think that they have a business when they don't have a business. They have a hobby. It's not really a business until it makes money. And it's not worth doing until it makes a profit. And until you get to the point where you're making a profit, it's just a hobby. All right. But it's the stepping stone to something wonderful if you stick with it and are open to learning. Okay. Classic Italian Culture says, thanks for the attention and the answers. You're absolutely welcome. John says, thanks. You're welcome, John. Sethi says, being my first job out of college, I should have persevered. I tried getting it back, but couldn't. I got another job with almost the same pay, and I had to go to the office. Now I was terminated from the second role because I took too many sick leaves only after 6 months. Okay. Now I took a career break and went back to my home country. Okay, so February 2023 to June 2023, career break June 2023 to present. Okay, so it's time to get back in the game then, is what you're saying. Now this was, I just wanted to keep straight in my head the first part of the story there. Yeah. Okay. Well, is there a question there? If you have a question, feel free to ask. David Wood says, thanks for the advice. You're absolutely welcome, David. Cajun Cracker Ranch says, you skipped over my question, Bill, but did see that I'm in the United States. All good. My question is between John and David. So, Cajun. It's not in my feed. Sorry, Cajun, can you just cut and paste it? Is that possible? Oh, I forgot to turn the filters off. There was some filters I was doing. You know what? If you guys bear with me, I'm just going to go and quickly turn off some of the YouTube filters that YouTube puts on, because that will avoid people's comments getting, like filtered out. So if you just bear with me for about 20 seconds here, let's see. Okay, so I've taken it off the live stream. So hopefully that helps. Hopefully, if it was filtered out, you can do it now. Just paste it again if you please, because it's not showing up in my feed. Yusef, hello teacher, it's Yusef again. Hey Yusef, how do I explain? Yusef, he says, how do I explain my situation professionally on resume and interviews? So Yusefi. Oh, okay. This was the story there. I don't think that really needs a very big, long explanation. I mean, I don't think it's really stuff that they absolutely need to know. The only thing that they need to know is that you're here, is that you have these capabilities, that you're a great employee, you have these social skills, and you are motivated to work in that job. That's the only thing they need to know. You don't have to explain your whole backstory. Now, if they ask you specifically about certain elements of it, okay, in a job interview, sure. Okay, like have your answer waiting, like similar to what you already wrote in the chat. But unless they're doing that, you don't need to explain this entire backstory. In fact, if you did, that would kind of take away, I think, because it's not really pertinent to, can you do the job? You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to tell them, I went on a career break and all this. Now, if you're concerned about a resume gap, okay, I've done a video on that. You've got to be able to say that, like, you see, if you tell them that there's like a gap, okay, where you did nothing, they're going to see that as a red flag. Now, if you say career break, that's kind of like, unless you qualify that, they're going to assume, oh, that's a period of time where you did nothing. I traveled the world. I, went on an extended vacation. I sat in my home and I watched TV, like whatever. Okay, so you're going to need to show that you're doing something useful, something constructive. So the classic answer for that is to just go and take like a free online course or something. And then you can say like, well, no, I went back to school. I got some training. I identified certain areas that I wanted to bone up on, and I took some courses in those areas. And now that I've brushed up on my skills and I feel, that I have some new capabilities, now I'm ready to rejoin the workforce, right? You see, that's not the same thing as a work gap, like a gap where you've done nothing, right? It's a more of a calculated, conscious thing where, you have a goal, you accomplish the goal, and now you're ready to go rejoin the workforce. So that will usually not be regarded as a red flag, right? So that's what you want to say. So don't give them this like huge backstory necessarily. Okay, my feed keeps like advancing on me here, so I got to find out where I left off. So yeah, that was for you, Seth. He's saying, how do I explain my situation professionally on resumes and interviews? Okay. So watch my video on work gaps if that would be helpful to you. Okay, Jonathan Chang says, sorry, I meant if they ask what's the reason I'm looking for a new job, should I also be telling them I'd like to return home other than appraising them. Now, John was, quick question, I'm currently working in Asia. I'm currently looking for a job so I can return to Canada. Should I be telling the interviewer the truth, I guess, if they ask? So I can return to Canada. But you're looking for a job where? In Canada? So you can return to Canada? Now should I be telling the interviewer? I don't fully understand that, Jonathan. Sorry, I meant if they're asking the reason I'm looking for a new job, should I also be telling them I'd like to return home, praising them? Well, that's incidental. Like, look, you're applying for the job because you want the job. Because number one, you're qualified to do it and you like doing that work. That's the only reason to like apply. They don't need anything else. They don't need to know your whole backstory or all the motivations. The bottom line, all they need to know is that you're qualified for it. You'd like to do it. And you can even, I suppose it's not the end of the world to say, also, I'm a little bit homesick. I'd like to come back to my home country. So as an added bonus, you guys are also in my home country, and that's part of the appeal. There you go. That's the whole explanation necessary. You really don't need to go into any more detail. That's what I would say. Sethi says, how do I address short positions? Well, that depends on how short, and it depends on how relevant. If they're really short, just leave them off. If they're, if you're afraid that would cause a gap that people would ask questions about or something, put them on as a one-line thing and just say, like, I was there for a month or, whatever. Or you could just leave it off and then it's not an issue. Yusef, I did an interview recently. I wanted to switch from accounting department to tax department and reviewed all your videos about how to get hired. Okay. See, I've got to scroll all the way down now to get the second part of that. I'm not saying this as a complaint. I'm just explaining like why it's taking me so long to answer stuff. So I got to go all the way down here. The VP was surprised about my question. I asked her if I was in this role, what would be your expectation for me for the first 30 days? She was like, wow, very nice question. Now I'm just waiting for the next step. Okay. Well, let me know if you have a question. Sethi says, so I graduated in September 22 with a diploma in business administration. I got a great remote job in finance, and it was so great, but I basically lost my mind and quit after 6 months. Okay. I basically job hopped and messed up. Sorry for the confusion. You mind if I write it again in order? No, I don't mind. I mean, just I'm answering several people's questions at once. So if the closest you can put everything together, like, or just give me the basics, like give me the, I don't need anything optional. Like, I'm basically looking for the question. Got a great job in finance. Yeah, and just as a reminder, I made an announcement earlier, like less than an hour ago, that I'm coming out with a third course. The working title is Write Like a Pro. Okay, but what this will do is it'll help you with your written communication, so you can communicate with anyone. You could communicate with executives. You can communicate with anyone, and you will not be signaling a bunch of things that are bad for you. A lot of times, you get notes from people, and it signals a lot of bad things. It signals like, I don't know how to write. I'm not educated. I'm not professional. I've got very strong, perhaps maybe amateur opinions about certain things. You know what I mean? Like, it all of those contribute to people not replying or not responding favorably. So this course will help you with that. Will help anyone who wants to really improve their communication skills and take them to the next level. So the only other part of that was that there's going to be a discount for people who buy the course early. The course should be out within a month, and I will have details on it specifically, hopefully within a week. So that's my goal there. But that's going to be happening. Okay. Yeah, so I'm still waiting for the question for you, Sethi, for the story there. Cajun Cracker Ranch says, what is the best approach to enter Canadian market for a project manager with 20 years experience in private, residential, commercial, healthcare, industrial, state, and federal projects? Well, state, so you're coming from the US, is that maybe? I'm not sure. I've never encountered that myself, so I don't know. But when it comes to I've worked as a project manager, project leader, like the head of projects for a company for a few years. So I know the kind of project side, but the thing that struck me about like sort of project work is that it really varies widely by industry, right? Depends what industry you're in. So I don't think there's like a real blanket answer to that. Depends specifically what industry you're in. The other element of that is that you're sort of moving internationally. Now, I'm not an authority in like immigration and all that kind of stuff. There are people who are, and there are YouTubers that, and other people that can advise you on that type of stuff, what the best thing to do is. All I can say is that in my experience, hiring not necessarily project managers, but like workers, people at the worker level, usually like if you have a profession, usually in my experience, what happens there is you kind of just take a job to get your foot in the door, to get into that country. You're employed, you got a job. It might not be a very sophisticated job, it might be very low level, but it's just a stepping stone to get your foot in the door, get yourself established. And then once you're there, then you can, jump to more of a career job. Because the big thing that a lot of employers want is they want home country experience, right? Now, there are exceptions to everything. Okay, and I'm sure it depending on, like if you're a project manager, I'm sure maybe it works a little bit differently than if you're at the worker level. But, just be open. If say moving to Canada, for example, like you mentioned, if that's like a real priority that you must go to Canada, be prepared that might be the thing that you have to do. I mean, who cares if you work for 2 months, doing something, kind of low level or whatever, if it accomplishes your goal, if it allows you to get your foot in the door, get a letter of recommendation, get a reference, things like this, get home country experience so you can put on your resume, right? So that they can check you out, right? It's more of a technical requirement than anything to do with prestige or anything. It's just a technical requirement. Because the problem is, if somebody's coming from another country, you really don't know who they are. And it's very hard to find out. Everything could be falsified, fabricated. You wouldn't know. You wouldn't be able to tell as an employer. So that's why a lot of them require home country experience. So I'm not sure if that's an issue for you or for the particular industry you're in, but that could be a thing. Now, as a default thing, I already said this like earlier this morning. I don't know if it was in this live stream or the last live stream, but do an informational interview. Do some informational interviews with Canadian project managers, or their bosses, right? In whatever industry you're in. Connected them with LinkedIn and learn how to obtain informational interviews. I talk about that in my course if you want like a definitive source for that. But whichever method you do this, get some informational interviews. Find out the answers to this straight from the people who know, that are in your industry, that are in the jobs that you want, or they hire people like you to be in the job you want, right? Get the information from them and say, what would you need to see, or what do you recommend I do? Right? And then why do you say that? And, all this kind of thing, right? That's the way to find out. Okay. Where was I here? This feed has moved all over the place. Oh, this thing totally jumped. Now I have no idea where I was. It's like it went to a completely different screen. Okay, I did that. 20 years project manager. Okay, Youssef. The VP was surprised about my question. I asked her if I was in this role What would be your expectations for me? She said, nice question. Okay. Okay, Cajun Cracker Ranch. The work permit process or direct with companies with what? The work permit process or direct with companies with current openings? Sorry, you lost me. I would go direct to companies. Like, I mean, if someone wants to hire you, then it makes sense, right? If you're just sort of doing the work permit, like without really a direction, you don't know if there's a job at the end. Like if, I don't know what your situation is. If you have a job lined up, that would be the order to do it in. Try and get the job lined up and then worry about the immigration stuff afterwards. But as I say, talk to people who know this stuff that are specifically in your industry, because each industry has its best practices of how you do this stuff. I know in construction, they're going back and forth across the border constantly, doing jobs here, jobs there. I kind of had some involvement in that many years ago. You know what I mean? But in other industries, it works completely differently. So you got to talk to the people in the industry and ask them how they suggest you would proceed. You're absolutely welcome, you Sethi. Jonathan Cheng says, okay, this froze on me again. Okay, here we go. Okay, now it's back. Jonathan Cheng says Vancouver. Jonathan Cheng. Okay, yeah, I didn't understand your last question. Sorry if I meant to ask what's the reason I'm looking for a new job. We told him I'd like to return home. Okay, that was the coming back to Canada thing. Vancouver. Okay, good. Okay, you Sethi says 2 months. What's that in relation to? Please ignore. That was the start of the question. You answered the question. Okay, great. Takar, or Tahar, if I'm saying that right, says, I will start a new job in a big multinational company in December. What is the best attitude to go through the onboarding process? The best attitude? Well, they're gonna, like, the best attitude is like, I'm happy to be here and I'm going to try and do my best. And, I'm excited to learn how things work at this company. And if you have any suggestions for me, let me know. That's the only real attitude you need. They're going to put you through that. It's just like sort of basic training where they familiarize you with, from everything from like, where's the bathroom to this is how we want you to write an email, and this is who you talk to, and this is who your boss is, and this is, these are the rules, right? Like it's all that kind of stuff, right? So just go through it and try and be friendly and, don't have like an attitude. Don't be arrogant, like, for example, they tell you this is how we do things here and you volunteer to them. Well, that's different from the last place I worked. It's like, yeah, they know that. Just say, sure, no problem. That's the correct response to everything. If you want people to regard you as a high potential employee that, is probably going to fit in really well and do a great job. Cajun Cracker Ranch says, yes, I'm in the U.S. Construction industry. Yeah, okay. Yeah, because they're going back and forth constantly, dealing with different jobs and things. Executive management, non-labor. Okay. Well, listen, that's what I would do. All the more reason to contact people in the industry and get it straight from the source. Say, like, look, I'm thinking of coming and working up there. How do you do it? Or what do you look for when people do it? Or what's the smart way to do it? Have you had any experience in that? What would you recommend? And what should I not do? Are there any red flags? Things like this. Get as much of that information as you can by talking to the people in the equivalent role up here, like up in Canada, or the people that would be employing those people, right? Because ultimately you want to please them, right? and they'll know a thing or two about, what's maybe the best way of doing it, right? I can't help you with details. I mean, when I dealt with that, it was like, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago, something like that, or certainly like around 15 years ago, I think. And I don't even remember all the details. I just remember we had a bunch of branch offices across the U.S. and I'd send a construction crew to renovate and upgrade the different sort of locations. So we were constantly sending people down, and we had to get work permits and all the travel stuff happening and like all the bureaucracy. I remember it was what's the name of that government department in the U.S.? They created it after 9/11. Homeland Security, Department of Homeland Security. So they had their own process you had to go through and what they needed to see. And I remember dealing with all that years and years ago. So, yeah. Okay. Well, we seem to have come to the end of these questions. Sorry if there was some confusion there and I might have missed your question. It was my feed was jumping all around on me, and then everybody's telling big long stories and they're all kind of in the wrong order. So not you guys' fault, just it's the limitations of I'm using Streamlabs OBS, and I find it a bit clunky. Maybe I'm just not used to it, or I don't have it set up in an optimal way, but not to mention the writing is very small. That's why I'm always squinting and going like this, right? I'd love to be able to do a wide shot where I'm like this far away and I got something big that I can see, and I don't have to squint like some kind of weird giant teleprompter or something. But there you go. No, I do this entire channel, by the way, I don't know if anyone cares, but I do this entire channel entirely myself with no special equipment. It's all completely homespun, just using my desktop computer. And my desktop computer is now 13 years old, I think. I built it myself. It was top of the line 13 years ago, so. But it's, completely obsolete now. I can't run Windows 11. I run Windows 10. So, yeah, I got to make do with what I have. I could upgrade, but I just don't want to get into that. It's a slippery slope. I will. I'll replace everything. At one point, I'm going to have to just do a clean sweep of all my technology and, and go with all new stuff. But that day is not today. So I apologize if it was a bit clunky, but hopefully you got answers to your questions. Hiring is really weird. There's a big difference between what they tell you in school and how you expect it to go and the reality of it. And, it's very jarring, this kind of disconnect at first between the reality of how it goes and what you're expecting. But the good news is that although this is kind of painful and very, it's not a fun process, the stuff you learn doing it, it's like you're being thrown right into the deep end of how to interact with people in a professional way. And this is what I think is fascinating about it, because, what I was talking about earlier this morning about if you have ambitions to be promoted, you want to climb the corporate ladder, become an executive, you really need to understand people and how people think and what their motivations are, what they care about, and therefore how you communicate with them, how you interact with them, how you behave around them, right? It's all related. And, learning this stuff just in the basic, like how to get a job type situation is going to teach you a lot of very important lessons about that stuff. And it will help you be a better communicator, for a variety of different situations. So, I know it's probably small consolation if you're between jobs right now, but the skills you're learning in dealing with a lot of these idiot recruiters and hiring managers and things is, it's stuff that's going to really benefit you further down the line, right? You will know how to deal with all kinds of people in all kinds of situations, and you will know what to say that will make them want to say yes to you, right? And the journey begins here. If you're just starting out, the journey is you're right at the very beginning of this journey. And it can take you some really amazing places eventually. but we got to start somewhere. And unfortunately, this is the beginning. So I don't seem to be getting any more questions, but that's where I'll leave it today. There are 26 of you guys here. Thank you for being here. You guys are all awesome. I will be back next week with another episode of How to Get Hired, a general Q&A. And I will also be doing 2 more episodes of the leadership series that I did. The 3rd episode this morning. And then my other live stream will be coming back. Side Hustle Ideas, I'll be coming back for anyone who's interested in making money yourself without going through an employer. That's an incredible skill. In the meantime, if you are lost when it comes to the whole how to get a job thing, you don't know what to do and nothing's really working, one possible solution is this course here, my Get Hired course. That's where I put all my advice on what to do in one place in a logical order with templates and examples and things like this. And I also have this other course called the $100 MBA course. And that is a course that literally teaches you everything that you would learn in a full-blown university MBA program. So Masters of Business Administration program. Okay. The catch, however, is that it's entirely self-study. That's why it's $100. A real MBA runs you 5 figures, but this is $100 because you're getting the textbooks that are the same textbooks that people use in some of the more prestigious MBA programs in the world, like Harvard Business School and stuff in their MBA program. And the difference is that instead of having somebody read it to you and talk about it in class, you're reading the material yourself. The advantage is that you can do it at your own pace and you can go as deep as you want or as shallow as you want. If you just want to skim it, get the basic idea, that's fine. If you want to go super in depth, you can. It's basically to serve you. And there are no evaluations, no tests, no assignments, nothing like that, which of course means that it's unaccredited. It will never be accredited because there's none of that stuff. But I don't need to know how much you've gotten out of it. You can get as much out of it as you want. If you are wanting to learn business, if you're wanting to start a business and make money yourself, you don't care about the diploma, the piece of paper. You care about the knowledge, and that's what's important. So that's what that's all about. Okay, so it's a solution for some people. It's also great for people that if you're thinking of taking an MBA, a proper MBA, a brick and mortar MBA at a university that's fully accredited, that costs you 5 figures, but you don't know if it's really the right career move for you. You don't know what you're going to be learning exactly. This is a way to preview it, to put your toe in the water and kind of see this is the nature of the material you're going to be learning. And then you can decide if taking the full-blown MBA is right for you. So there's a variety of people that would find this useful. But if you are interested in that, or either of those courses, check out the description box below this video. I have links to the courses. I also have links to 2 videos, each of which describes these 2 courses, so you know what you're getting into before you pull the trigger on it. Okay, I want to be as transparent as possible. So there's those 2 that are here, and like I said, there's going to be a 3rd course very soon called, the working title is Write Like a Pro. That if you want to really have exceptional written communication skills, this is the thing to do. I'm putting all the tips right there. And this came directly from me teaching a communication course, in like 5 years ago or less. I went back to university and I taught various courses in HR programs and things and business programs, some at universities, some at college. And I interact with a lot of students, and I saw the standard of their writing. And, I was teaching things like how to network with executives and things like this, because everyone can do this if you know what to do and you know what to say. Anyone can do this. Everyone has access to be able to do this and create tremendous opportunities for yourselves. But the one thing that I noticed was that the standard of a lot of people's writing was not great. And if I had received notes from people that wrote in the way that these students did, I don't think I would respond to them. Some were low-level mistakes, spelling and grammar, punctuation. Others were high-level mistakes, like what to say. And some were sort of mid-level mistakes where, you can't really structure your thoughts, or explain things clearly, you know? So I'm putting all of that into one course. High level stuff, low level stuff, mid level stuff, and it all adds to give you the ability to do two things. Number one, you can explain any idea, no matter how complex. You could explain molecular biology. You could explain nuclear physics. Okay? In such a way, and that's written so clearly, that when somebody reads your writing, whether this is in a paper or, you know, any other form of communication, an email, they will never read it and go, what? And then go back and reread part of it, because everything will be so clear. Okay? That's the first thing you're going to get, the ability to do that. The second thing you're going to be able to get is the ability to send a note, like I advocate for in like my Get Hired course. One of the things that, one of the ways to network is to reach out to hiring managers and say, you know, hey, I'm here, I can do this. If ever you're looking, let me know, right? Now you can imagine some people, when they send that note, they send it to the wrong person. Then they make high-level mistakes. They start talking all about themselves, you know? When was the last time you got a spam email from someone you don't know and they start by talking all about themselves? We provide this solution, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, you know, how much of that do you read? Within the first sentence, I tune out and I delete the email. It's like, nope. Right? So they made high-level mistakes. They made low-level mistakes. They made mid-level mistakes. So a lot of times the people didn't respond to them was because, like, this note, I'm not going to respond to that. I'm going to teach you how to write in such a way that people will respond. You know what to say, and you know how to say it. Right? So those are the two things you're going to get out of this course. So if that's interesting to you, stay tuned. I will have details within a week, and it'll be up within a month, and there'll be some kind of early adopter price discount for those people that jump in, like, on the first day, basically. But there you go. Thank you for joining me today. You guys are awesome, and I will see you next week. I wish you all the best. Take care.